So in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 4 through 5, Paul says, "For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ." So we're going to get into the battlefield of the mind, the taking every thought captive part, because that's a huge element of spiritual warfare. For some people more than others. But right now, we're going to talk about our weapons. They're not the enemy's weapons, and they're not the world's weapons. I think some of us, we unintentionally were using the enemy's weapons to fight our battles. So, if something hard is coming your way and you really don't want this thing to happen, and you really want to see a miracle happen so that whatever this hard thing is doesn't happen. Sometimes we're praying, but we're actually praying from a place of anxiety and worry. And so every time we're praying, it's not because we're trusting God and full of faith, it's because we're worried. And so we're just rehearsing worry over worry, over worry, over worry. So I realized that at one point, that sometimes I'm operating in anxiety. I'm using the enemy's tool of anxiety when I need to be using God's tool of faith and trust in that shield, right? And even, sometimes, when I was sick recently, I found that I was using all of the enemy's tools. I was isolating myself from everyone. It wasn't like a contagious sickness. I had like an infection in my eye. I was like isolating. I was like, don't look at my Quasimodo face. And I was trying to distract myself, instead of just trying to connect with God and like continue on with what He'd called me to do. I was trying to distract myself with other things, and distraction is totally something that the enemy tries to get us bogged down with. We want to have spiritual eyes to use the tools that God's given us.
Mm-hmm. This is not just a Beth Moore book from the 90s.
Which was not very helpful.
No, it really isn't. Very catchy, very popular.
Yeah. So this is an image of soldiers in the trenches, and there's they need to stay down low because there's bullets flying, there's all kinds of projectiles flying overhead. So I want to suggest, maybe you want to suggest, we're gonna describe the battlefield of the mind, but to see it with spiritual eyes, it might look a lot more like this than we kind of realize, which is that, go for it?
Yeah, you're rolling. Bro.
No, you had something really good that you wanted to say about it before.
Cool.
So I think it was Martin Luther who said, you may not be able to stop the birds from flying overhead, but you can stop them from making a nest in your hair. Right? And so that's kind of this idea of missiles flying. So what I kind of want to suggest to you is that you are not your thoughts. Mm-hmm. This was the point that you wanted to make. And so not every thought that comes to you is from you. It's not necessarily from your deepest part of you that you need to think, oh, how could I even think that? Oh my goodness.
So there's a lot of self-help books in business and things that talk about, and this is going to be one of the weapons. Oh man, I actually have that in my notes over here for something we didn't get to one night. But this idea of positive self-talk and metacognition is thinking about your thoughts and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not against all those things, but I remember coming across something in a program that I was in for professional development. And it said, you are, at core, you're basically your thoughts. You are your thoughts. And so Henry Ford's mom said, if you think you can, or you think you can't, you're probably right, And there's something to that, speaking positively and having that. It's more of a mindset and a worldview and a perspective than it is about the words. But so I want to be careful in that and say, yes, there's something to that. Because if you're always down on yourself and saying, oh, I'll never be able to. Well, not with that attitude, right? There's a fabulous Jack in the Box commercial from like 10 years ago. And the conditions are questionable because it was their late night $5 boxes or whatever. And so Jack in the Box is sitting with his buddy on the couch really, really late at night. He's like, man, I just want to fly. And the guy looks over at Jack. He's like, we can't fly. We can't fly, bro. He's like, not with that attitude. And then he just starts floating away. And you're like, that's hysterical. It's awesome, right? It's absurd. But I want to be careful because I really believe that the enemy plays mind games with people and gives you destructive thoughts and tries to shake you up with fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
You ever have those thoughts where you're like, where did that come from? I remember specifically a teacher talking to me one year. He remembers walking. I mean, it was Southern California and we were in La Jolla. He was in La Jolla, San Diego, and he was walking along the La Jolla cliffs. And something in him said, I just want to jump off. I just want to jump off. And you're like, and he started to get closer to the edge because that desire was coming into him. And his mom happened to be walking with him. What are you doing? Like, I don't know. Something told me in my head that I just wanted to jump off. She's like, that's demonic. That's evil. And so my teacher was telling me about his experience in this. And we've all had something like that. Or those thoughts were like, where did that come from? What was that? Oh, that was gross. I don't like that. And I'm not going to say that gross things don't come out of us, but they also come from the enemy, right? So the idea behind this is you are not your thoughts. Just because you have a thought doesn't mean that's what you are or it has control over you or power. That's why it says to take every thought captive to obey Christ. Thought, obey the true Lord of all things. Not this weird usurper of power, Prince John. We're not obeying that guy. We're obeying God. And so we take every thought captive to obey Christ. And so there's this idea where you're not your thoughts, but you need to be mindful of what's flying around above you. So think about what's influencing your thoughts a lot. I sound so lame. What songs are you listening to? What movies are you watching? What doom scrolling are you going to for 2 hours? So in that mindset, what are we putting in? What fodder, what ammunition are we giving the enemy to mess with us?